Primal Fear is a mod you have probably heard about by now, but if you haven't, let me show you what it's all about. I'm just playing Death Simulator at this point, and I will have 100 days to take on and defeat the ultimate boss. I spawned in on the sunny beaches of Ragnarok and immediately noticed some funny looking creatures. This one was normal though, it just had the cool summer bash colours on. But I did see this new parrot. I got myself some materials and crafted a stone pickaxe, before I found this big green carbo. But it was aggressive, so I ran. Next to it was a bright blue level 145 Moschops who wanted only measure berries. I fed them to her and my new Moschops Glacier was tamed. Glacier wouldn't last long, a theme that would be constant throughout the early days of this video. If you're tired of your dinos instantly dying, then take a break from ARK and try out Raid Shadow Legends. With over 80 million players, Raid Shadow Legends is one of the most popular free-to-play games out there, and you can see why when they have amazing bosses like the Hydra. The Hydra is the ultimate boss with 6 different heads, with each being its very own boss battle. There is the head of the Blight who is all about poison, the head of Torment who is terrifying, the head of Mischief who will steal your buffs and give them to the other heads, the head of the Wrath who is the ultimate heavy hitting boss, the head of Decay who lowers your health when you heal, making it a rather strategic boss fight, and finally the head of Suffering who uses its new debuff Pain Link to return the damage you do to it back to your champion. Truly the worst ability of the lot. For this fight I'll most likely be using the champion Gaelic. I love his brute strength in his attacks and ability to damage multiple opponents at once. For me, Gaelic is the best starter champion available, as his abilities are easy to learn and are able to do high amounts of damage. I highly recommend trying Gaelic out. Raid Shadow Legends have added a new game mode to make things even better called Hydra Clash, where you and your clan can face up to 4 other clans to see who is the ultimate Hydra boss killing machine. But if you need some help defeating the Hydra boss, then check out the champion Stag Knight. And new players can get yourself a free skin by entering the code JTSkin before October 7th. And if you're not a new player, don't worry, this skin is still available to you through in-game events. Oh, I've got one more thing for you. New players, use my link in the description or scan the QR code on screen and get yourself the ultimate free starter pack worth $30 for free. So what are you waiting for? Log into Raid Shadow Legends now and claim all this amazing free loot using my links and join me on the battlefield as I aim to take down the scary Hydra boss. I spawned back in, dinoless once again. I found this body bag which has some of the new items in that the mod provided. I got my things together and farmed some metal from this rock before taking a plunge into the water and heading across Viking Bay. And surprisingly, the water was empty. For once it seemed it was safer than the land. I got to the other side and got myself these primal spears before I was killed by a dodo. Even the dodos are strong on this mod. I got my things and used my primal spears on this dodo and knocked it out. I put some measure berries in its inventory, but later figured out it ate something else. With it having no use to me, I killed it and harvested it and got toxic hide and blood. As day 1 came to a close, I built a little base consisting of a singular foundation and this storage box. I found some more materials and made stone arrows which I used on this toxic carbo, but I was then killed by a Bronto, which I wasn't even fighting. This time I went for a safer fight and killed a toxic zombie dodo before killing its friend. Then a toxic carbo started attacking my base as I crafted arrows.
I don't want peace. I want problems!
I shot him with these exploding trank arrows I had found and eventually knocked him out. After a quick Google search, I found out that I needed to make toxic kibble to tame it, but I couldn't make them right now. Instead, I punched this dodo to sleep, fed it measure berries and tamed that. Then tried to make it attack the toxic carbo, but it was too shy and simply refused to do so. Then I spotted an alpha Bronto get destroyed by something, and this had me scared. Then the rampaging parasol targeted my poor dodo who had no chance, and then it went for me. I turned and ran for my life, and it just kept chasing. I eventually lost its aggro and decided to harvest the bodies of dinos it had already killed, which included this apex dilo, but it didn't like this and began to chase me once again. I got myself onto a cliff and used some parkour skills to get to safety, and it was only now that I could see what it finally was. It was a Primal Tech Parasol. Whilst harvesting a Bronto, the Parasol detected my presence once more, and so the chase began again. This time I led it as far down the beach and away from my base as possible and let it kill me. This meant my base area was now safe from the deadly beast. I finished up harvesting all the dead bodies before I found high level Moschops who wanted honey, something I just didn't have. There was another but he wanted cooked prime meat. I found a body bag which had an apprentice sword which was useful before I was snuck up on by a toxic dodo, but he didn't want to hurt me. I killed him though. I then spotted this large shrike who got angry and killed me. It was a fabled creature and I was yet to come across any of them so far. I went back and tamed the moss chops from before and named him Moshi. Moshi was a beast. Moshi then died. With my need for a berry farming dino still there, I ran up the hill to look for one. But some fjordhawks got me first and killed me. And these guys had it out for me as they killed me before I could even get to my stuff. I then found this apex egg on the beach and took it, as it's likely to be needed later on. I then saw a dead body bag which belonged to a Primal Tech parasaur, and the loot was rather good, but the question was, what killed it? As the day ended, I farmed some stone to make forges, to smelt metal, to make a smithy, which I used to make a metal pick, and with the metal pick I farmed even more metal, and that was the end of day 2. During the night I went to get crystal from the seabed. This crystal was then turned into a spyglass before I made a raft and went out sailing. What is that? Whoa! What is that? Oh, that does not look good. What? Oh, it's still going. What is that? That does not look friendly at all. I killed this apex dino and got some rather good loot and tried to knock out this PT whilst being chased by a toxic dodo and that loud explosion thing in the background. But I was finally able to see the culprit. It was a spirit rex, whatever that is. I killed another dino and got some more good loot, as well as drinking a small XP potion and getting a whole bunch of levels. I then saw the berry farming dino I needed, a level 168 tech parasaur. I knocked it out with some trank arrows and soon later it was tamed. So I cryoed it up and went back to base. I did find this alpha brachy egg which I stupidly decided to steal, because as soon as I did that the 2 brackies went charging after me. Luckily I was able to get them stuck on a hill and I could make a safe getaway. I got my parasaur back to base and went out to farm some stone and wood so that I could make a primal smithy. But I then had an intruder as this high level Carno started to attack me. I tried my best to defeat it with a sword, but it was just too strong and I died. I returned to base to see it kill my freshly tamed tech parasaur, and then kill me once again. Why does everything die? I then somehow got the Carno onto my raft and took him out for a trip.
You're my friend now.
I then killed the Carno. Later that evening I found a PT at my base, so I knocked it out and tamed it, before heading out the next morning and knocking out this high level iguanodon. Whilst waiting for it to tame, I heard some loud explosions nearby and went over to investigate. Whilst luring these raptors off a cliff, this happened. I returned to the area only to find my iguanodon was also killed by the saber-tooths. I found myself in more trouble as I was hit by a scorpion and then knocked out, and then killed. I used a parachute and jumped my way back to base. I then found this same level 130 PT from earlier and knocked it out. But as this is Primal Fear, there was always something lurking in the distance. There was an Alpha Rex who I tried to kill myself, but this only led to me bringing it over to my PT and it killed it. At night I found another good PT, knocked it out, and whilst it was taming I got myself a moss chops. By the morning the PT had tamed and I was then back at base boiling raw meat and using my brand new moss chops to flame up some berries. But I wanted to go out on a little trip to see what was nearby. I found a demonic equus, a pair of apex indominus rexes, a fabled grifficorn, and then the almighty iguanodon, who I bowled up and then knocked out. But it would have its issues as I would get attacked by a group of fjord orcs, and it would end up taming with just 50 HP left, and a ruined taming effectiveness, but it was good enough for me as all I wanted it for was to make berry seeds. I used the seeds to make potent narcotics and then did some parkour around my base. I wanted to make myself a harpoon gun, but I was short on materials. A quick trip over to a beaver dam helped fix that though, as well as killing penguins in the snow for polymer. With it crafted, I went out to tame myself an RG. I found this awesome blue looking one and knocked it out, and this started a taming rampage inside of me as I went out and found an Anki and a Trike which I both knocked out and then tamed. I went back to the archer to find a dead celestial archer on the ground next to it, and over to loot it before me and my PT were then killed by a primal tech stego. I lured the stego off the cliff before getting bullied by a scorpion, who knocked me out and killed me. I returned and harvested the body of the celestial Argy and then collected mine who had finished taming. I got back to base where I was attacked by more fjord orcs who had quickly become the bane of my existence. However, I netted them and easily dispatched of them this time. My trike finished taming and so did my Anki, despite being in a rock. I used my new Anki to collect metal, which they are rather good at, and I used my trike to farm up more berries. I did a massive overhaul of my forges at base before making a fabricator, and then farming oil and silica pearls. But the spirit Rex from earlier was wreaking havoc on the other side of the bay, and it ended up killing something which I got loot for, and the loot was rather good. At base I made a chainsaw and used it to harvest a lot of wood which would be used to power my forges. I went out to get more metal, but was stopped in my tracks by another spirit Rex which had already claimed them for itself, and it wasn't too happy about me paying him a visit. I stole from another beaver dam and had the entire population of beavers aggro onto me, before returning back to base and seeing I had a primal tech raptor nearby. So I went over to lure it away, and I went back to the metal area where the spirit Rex seemed to have moved out and began farming the metal. Whilst the metal smelted, I placed down some crop plots and went out to search for a Phiomia. I found one, brought it back to base, knocked it out and tamed it. I named it the Dookie Man. I wanted to get myself into the Primal Fear tiered dinos, so I looked up what I needed for toxic kibble. I needed eggs plus vegetables, so I went out and got myself a few dodos before spotting a primal tech trike now near my base. I hopped on the cliff and hoped I could net it. I couldn't. I finally made myself a toxic kibble and went out and knocked out a toxic zombie dodo, who I then tamed. Before going out and doing a bit of base location searching, as I wanted something safer, I found this flattish area at the top of a hill and went back to base to begin making the structures for it. I packed up all my things and began to build my new base. I cleared out the area and placed a well on top of this water source. I built up some more crop plots as well as making water reservoirs. Then I spotted those Apex Indominus Rexes were right nearby, and I really wanted one, but I wasn't ready just yet. I built up some more on my base with placing smithies and that sort of stuff, and then placing greenhouse walls around my crop plots and then filling them with feces. I killed a mantis for polymer so that I could make an indie forge and a couple of refrigerators. I went out on my Anki to get some more metal and was able to make another toxic kibble, as well as realising I had this Mastercraft Primal fabricated sniper blueprint. I was then out and about when I spotted this absolute beast, a celestial Indominus Rex, who was way too close to my base, and it turned out this was one of the bosses in the mod. I would then find this out as it sent a horde of minions to attack me, who quickly ended me and my Argy's life. Back at base I knocked out another PT, it was only a low level, but I tamed it anyway. I then tried to net this Alpha PT, but the net didn't work and it just flew away. I then for some reason decided to try and net this Tech Primal Parasaur, but obviously it just didn't work and it killed me and my newly tamed PT. At base I made a chemistry bench, then gunpowder and these alpha infused tranq bullets, but I didn't have a gun to shoot them and I still needed sap to make the gun. So I made some sap collectors, got myself another PT and went over to the redwoods to place the collectors. And after a while I was able to make my first primal sniper. I went out to the desert and spotted this level 130 alpha griffin, built it a little trap and shot at my new sniper until it was knocked out. I left the area and watched it tame from afar, and by night it was done. I went over and retrieved it and brought it back to base and gave it the amazing name of Velocity. Velocity was decent, as he did 9k damage in his swoop attack. I then found an Apex Fairy which I wanted to tame, so I knocked it out and then I died to a kamikaze dodo? What the hell is that? I got my things back and decided I didn't want to tame it anymore, so I killed it. At base I knocked out a Dodic and then found an Alpha Dodo I found at the beach. It tamed and I then found myself another Alpha Dodo. I then found an engram for something called the Primal Indie Forge, and it was basically a better and quicker version of my normal Indie Forge, so I wanted one, but was kinda short on materials, so I went out of my Anki to get obsidian, and then crystal, and stole some cementing paste from my beaver dam. I also finally killed my first primal tech creature, and I even got black pearls from harvesting it, which I thought was really cool. I then tamed this very basic Therizino. I then tried to make myself some alpha kibble, but it was saying I needed alpha eggs, which I thought was really odd as I had alpha fertilized eggs in my inventory, and it was only now I realised that the eggs can't be fertilised. I took my new Therizino over to the swamp to get a ton of rare flowers before turning them into toxic narcotics. And then for some reason I took on this Alpha Phoenix, which was an awful idea. Oh no! Oh, my health! What? Oh, that was so much damage. Oh, that was so bad. Oh, that could have ended so badly. I went around and killed a couple more tech primal parasaurs before harvesting polymer from these mantises, and I was finally able to make the Mastercraft Fabi Sniper. I even got a nice 21% crafting skill bonus on it. And what better creature to test it on than the Apex Indominus Rex that was right next to my base. With the bullets I was using, I got each shot to do up to 18k torpor. But my next goal was to now make this shotgun BP I'd gotten earlier. But first, I had to collect some stone with my Dodec, turn that stone into cementing paste, harvest more mantis bodies for polymer and chitin, and I was now able to make the next tier of kibble, elemental kibble, and near my base there was this fire griffin, who would be the perfect tame. I tamed it and soon later brought it back to base, hoping to get some elemental eggs from it. Yeah, I was hoping to get eggs from a griffin.
Embarrassing!
Aside from that moment of stupidness, I finally made that good shotgun BP, and made myself a bunch of ammo for it, and then tested out on that good old Apex Indominus Rex again, and the shotgun was amazing. It was doing 40k health per shot. In fact, it was enough for me to even kill the Apex Indominus Rex easily. I then ran into a bit of a problem as a tech primal raptor almost killed me and my griffin, but instead pounced me and then killed me. I then found the female Apex Indominus Rex, and for some reason it dropped the egg after only shooting it once. The wiki says they drop it at 10% health, but I'll take it. I brought it back to place and placed it in an egg incubator and waited for it to hatch. Whilst I waited, I went out and knocked out a caustic parrot, but I also found a near max level electric parrot nearby who I also knocked out. I tamed both of them up before finding a high level male caustic parrot who I also wanted. The following morning he was tamed and I eventually found the female caustic parrot to get the mate boost. Back at base I was ready to hatch the Indom Rex, and I got triplets, which was amazing. But I've read that they only ate Apex kibble whilst growing up, which was a bit of an issue as I didn't have too much. So I decided to pack 2 of them away for now, but then a friend told me that you didn't even need to feed them kibble, and there was instead a food potion that they could be fed on. And this was so much cheaper to make. By nightfall she was fully grown and I gave her an XP potion and boosted those stats. She was now doing 50k damage per bite, far better than anything I already had, and was even strong enough to take out tech primal stegos. In fact, she was even strong enough to take out her other Indom Rexes. But the real challenge started when I took on the almighty Primal Aloe with 18 million health. This thing took forever to kill. But I eventually killed it and harvested its body for primal blood. But I then got attacked by another one.
2,000 years later.
After so long I had killed the second, I then found and killed this ramshackle wandering loot boss, which gave me some decent loot. Next I killed a celestial Allosaurus, and then I killed this Captain Black Boulder creature thing, which turned out to actually be the first tier of bosses as I got the tameable summoner version, which I never used. Next on the killing spree was a Chaos Rex, then a Primal Raptor, before I took on a Celestial Wyvern, which didn't go too well. It killed me a couple more times as I tried to get back on my dino. On the third try I made it, but it seemed the Wyvern had just disappeared, and I don't think my dino killed it either. I attempted to kill this Artifacto the Great, but instead he killed me. Instead I used my Indom Rex, who was much better equipped for the fight. From the loot I got 5 artifacts, which kinda makes sense, hence the name Artifacto the Great. Next I found a max level Apex Spino, who I wanted to tame, so I knocked her out and went back to base to make the kibble, only to return to see things attacking it and ruining its taming effectiveness. So instead I knocked out this Apex Carno and tamed it, only for me to immediately die to a Mega Raptor. Out in the desert I tamed a female Apex Carno, getting that mate boost. I decided to take on this demonic thorny dragon, but it killed me. Thankfully though, it fell into the water, making it an easy kill. I got back to base and made myself a set of fur armor, so I could then go over to the snow and farm myself some much needed oil. With the oil collected, I can now make a primal indie forge, which turned out to be much smaller than I thought it was going to be. In the desert I spotted a Fable Anki which I wanted to tame, and this guy was awesome. Not only did he harvest a lot of metal, he was rapid too. But with all the metal collected, I now had a completely full indie forge. But the quest for fabled creatures didn't stop there though, as I found a high level fabled Dodic, who I wanted, so I knocked him out and tamed him. And this guy was also extremely quick. I was out and about when I spotted this high level Alpha Bronto, who I wanted so I could have the ultimate berry farming Bronto, and soon later it was tamed, and this guy was pretty good at getting those berries. Next I tamed myself some fabled PTs for the eggs, and also this Omega Rex, so the other Omega Rex, which I don't have the footage of me recording for some reason, so it could have a mate. I then decided to raise up the 2 remaining Indominus Rexes I had, and also got 100% imprint on both. I could now make the next tier of kibble, so I made myself some demonic kibble and then a celestial. I went out to find a celestial fairy which I wanted, so I shot at my primal sniper and knocked it out. It then tamed up and I checked out its special ability, which was the breath attack thing. But it was quite good at wood gathering, so that's a plus. Soon after, my 2 Indominus Rexes had finished growing up, so I took them out on a bonding trip and to take on this Primal Spino, but they didn't really seem interested. So I had to take it on solo, which I did, and I killed it. Then we took on a Primal Aloe, followed by an Origin Raptor, which had so much health. But whilst fighting it, I had gotten lucky as it was only able to hit the dino I was riding, which meant it was way easy to heal and I wouldn't run the risk of losing any creature. But even with the 3 of us, it took so long to kill. In the loot I got something called Origin Infused Narcotics, which could be used to make Origin Trank arrows, which claimed to knock anything out with 1 hit. One thing I did get from the Origin Raptor was tech engrams, but not ones that I wanted. I wanted the tech transmitter, and these things are pretty useful. If you place enough of them down on the map, you can search and find locations of all dinosaurs, and when you need to find specific variants in a mod like this, it can become quite useful. So to get the engram for the tech transmitter, I had to defeat the Beta Ragnarok boss, and that's what I set out to do. First of all, by defeating the Ice Cave, I summoned in the Alpha Iceworm and took it down very easily with my Apex Carno, and headed on to collect the artifact. I left the Ice Cave and immediately hopped over to the Jungle Cave, which didn't go as smoothly. On the second try I got the artifact and then went out to get some more before I headed over to the Life's Labyrinth Cave. I quickly entered the code Grata and crawled through the fire section, passed through the maze and collected the first artifact. Sacrificed the dodo and went into the final room. I am speedrunning this part because everyone's already seen this cave a million times already. I killed the bear and wolves and got the final 2 artifacts, before going back in to do it all again. But this time I took the left path, through the water section, jumped over some spikes and used my Carno to choose the parkour part. I got the last artifact and teleported back to base. I then got the very last artifact that I needed from the ocean, and now it was time to do some tribute hunting, as I needed to do the beta boss. Then it was ready to summon, and all I took with me was my Carno and Rex. The shotgun easily dismantled the dragon, and then did the same to the Manticore, as I unlocked the tech transmitter. Back at base I wanted to make the tech replicator, but I was short on polymer. A quick trip to the volcano would solve that, as I was now able to make one. I then made the tech transmitters and placed them down before using the Dino Scanner feature to look for a demonic monkey. I hope you wasn't looking forward to seeing that, as for some reason I didn't record it, and I only got this footage of me leaving right after taming it, as I had a replay capture mode enabled. So instead enjoy watching me teleport back to base. I got my monkey out of base and gave him an XP potion, which saw his health rise up to 5 million and the rest of the points going into melee, and my new demonic monkey was incredible. It did this ranged explosion attack which did over 100k damage per second to anything it hit. I was even easily able to kill this Primal Kentro, and I took it out to the desert and obliterated a Primal Tech Giga. I then spotted a level 135 Celestial Rex near my base, so obviously I knocked out and tamed it. The Rex's special attack was a ball that spat into the air and then split into a further 4 that I assumed did a lot of damage. Next I took my Demon Monkey out and took on an Origin Spino, which I absolutely obliterated. But I didn't stop there. I simply melted an Origin Carno, but then had some issues with an Origin Bear which resulted in me dying. I returned to the area and managed to kill it, but I did have a few more issues. I continued my surge by killing an Origin Argy before taking on an Origin Wyvern. I managed to trap it in a cave, which made for quite an easy killing. Next I summoned in an Origin Rex and Kairuku, as they were yet to spawn in the normal world, and then took them on. But before I went too far, I found a celestial griffin which I wanted to tame, so I knocked it out and it tamed. I then pumped a bunch of levels into it and this thing was extremely quick. I then took my Anki out to the desert to farm some metal, returned and placed the near 50k amount I just got into my forge. All this metal was being made into metal structures as I wanted to build a massive trap, more so I could easily contain all the creatures I had to summon. And this is what I'd come up with. Nothing too special, but it should do the job. The Kairuki was small enough to escape out the trap though, but that wasn't too much of an issue as I was still able to kill it. So with all the origin creatures killed, I was now able to summon the Celestial Indominus Emperor, which is the second tier of bosses in Primal Fear. So I went over to my new trap and tried to summon it inside the trap.
Oh no!
The foreshadowing I mentioned earlier? Well, yeah, it didn't fit inside, so I had to make do on the hill next to it instead. Things were going well, until they weren't. I then died again. Then my Omega Rex, who wasn't even in the fight, got killed, but eventually I was able to kill the Celestial Indominus Emperor. When you kill it, you get another summoner, which spawns a tameable version with a lot less health, so it's not too OP. So I spawned it in and shot it with an Origin Trank arrow, and waited for it to go to sleep. After feeding it some celestial kibble, I had now tamed my very own Celestial Indominus Rex Emperor. Its damage was decent, doing 57k before any levels, but at base I gave it a max potion and improved that as I pumped its health up to 15 million and put the rest of the points into melee. I was now doing 157k per bite, and only 18k on its other attack, which was a bit disappointing. I tried to take on an Origin Rex with it, but I was really underwhelmed with how weak it was, or how weak it was compared to my demonic monkey, who could easily kill these origin creatures. Next I spotted a max level fabled unicorn and I just couldn't pass up on the opportunity. It tamed and I took it out for a spin. I then used my demon monkey to kill this spirit rex and a primal carno which I didn't even know was there. Before going back to my trap to take down some more origin creatures. I also went out and killed a couple Artifacto the Greats as crafting the Origin Summoners used up a lot of artifacts, but I continued the Origin Massacre whilst also maintaining my blood supply. But the assault against the Origin creatures continued well into the night until I was finally able to make the Demonic Reaper Emperor Summoner. So I went over to my cage to summon it in, but it summoned on top of it. But worry not, as I was able to get onto this small ledge and start the fight, but that didn't last too long. But things would only get worse as my demonic monkey was found dead on the ground as I returned, and it appeared the Reaper had also despawned. So I set out to kill the origin creatures again, but whilst fighting one, a second super high level Rex spawned right next to it. And there was no way I was going to fight two at once, so I ran away. Next I found myself being killed by a demonic parasaur, then I died to a second one, then a third, but I did find myself at level 130 which I began to knock out. Whilst it tamed, I died to another demonic parasaur, but my one eventually tamed and I was back amongst the demonic ranks again. I fed it a couple XP potions that got its health to 7.5 million and 4k melee, and its attack was quite nice. It had the same fire breath attack, but it was more targeted and felt less spread out compared to the demonic monkey, and it even made for an easy killing of the origin Rexes from earlier. In fact, I was even able to kill the second one that was there with ease. But I did want a monkey again, so I knocked out this level 50, but then I found a level 100, so I got that as well. Next I found a level 135 Omega Indominus Rex, and I know I'm past the stage of Omega, but I still wanted it because it looked cool. It knocked out in the water, which wasn't really an issue as I was still able to tame it. Then I used my new demon monkey to continue killing origin creatures. I did find a male level 15 and a female 130, which I tamed both. I got the male in hopes that I could breed them and get an infinite supply of demonic monkeys, but you can't breed them. Instead, I wanted to try out the cloning chamber and see if that could work. It did, but it cost 600,000 shards per clone. Instead, I went on a killing spree, killing an Artifacto the Great, Origin Wyvern, before getting myself killed by a Celestial Rex. I killed an Origin Raptor, Carno, Spino and Direbear, but was still one short of the Demonic Reaper. So went and got some artifacts and spawned in the final Origin creature, the Kairuki, and easily dismantled it, and then crafted the Reaper Summoner. I spawned it in, and once again it was on top of the cage, and soon later I was dead for the first time. Next I was on the hill with my demonic parasaur, but I got obliterated. I then got obliterated again. I then found myself on this hill where I couldn't get hit and I was doing some good damage, but I soon got killed again. After some more chaos, I was finally able to defeat the demonic Reaper Empress, and once again after killing it you got another summoner which would summon a tameable version, and well, this didn't go too well, as my demon, monkey and I were killed once again. I eventually knocked it out on the side of my hill and tamed it using demonic kibble. It tamed and I gave it a few XP potions to improve those levels, aiming for 5 million health and the rest of the points going into melee. My next goal was now to move on to the next bosses, but to do that I needed to kill and get so many tributes, it was unreal. So I'm going to turn it into a montage. Enjoy. With all that killing, I was now able to spawn in the Spirit Guardian, who was the next tier of boss, I think. But before I could spawn it in, I decided to make my trap taller, so hopefully it would stay in there this time. This required a quick trip out to the desert to get metal, but before I knew it, I had my new and improved metal trap, which was now much taller. I spawned in the Spirit Guardian and thankfully it was in the trap. I gave my demonic Reaper some healing potions and entered the fight. I was so glad to improve my trap as it made the entire boss fight so much easier and safer, and after not too long it was defeated and I'd unlocked the Spirit Orb, which meant I could now tame spirit creatures. But the Spirit Orb wasn't exactly cheap. So I tamed some Omega Aloes and bred my fabled PTs so I could get as many eggs as possible, and I was needing a lot of fabled eggs. I found this level 145 demonic parasaur which I wanted, so I knocked it out and tamed it under the water. I also killed some more demonic creatures with my monkey and was finally able to craft my first Spirit Orb. I had only one creature I wanted to tame with it, this level 90 Spirit Griffin, as I'd come to really like griffins in this 100 days. I used my Origin Trank arrows to knock it out, as it did have a seriously high amount of torpor, but this didn't go too well as it hit my griffin and its health plummeted to almost zero. I eventually finished off the job with my sniper and the griffin was down. I fed it a Spirit Orb and it tamed instantly. But I wasn't done there. I found and wanted this level 140 Celestial Griffin. I put most of the points into movement speed on this griffin and it was rapid. Next I killed some more Origin creatures before knocking out another level 145 demonic monkey who ended up taming with 41 points into melee. Then I continued my attack against the local wildlife by killing all the celestial creatures, demonic and Origin creatures that I could find, and my brand new Celestial Griffin was quickly becoming one of my favourite creatures in this 100 days challenge, as its ability to do high damage and move so quickly was super useful. I did find this level 130 demonic thorny dragon and I wanted it as I hadn't tried out this variant of demonic yet, so I knocked it out and tamed it. Just don't ask me how it got here. I got back to base and pumped its stats, getting it to 10 million health and tested out on this Origin Carno, and it was decent. Nothing too special though. I did use it to destroy an Origin Argy, Spino and Primal Carno, before going back on my Griffin to kill some more demonics. I eventually had the items ready to make the Chaos Guardian Summoner. I spawned it in the trap and decided to use my new demonic thorny dragon to take it on, as this is basically a wyvern with a lot of health and some cool colours. And after a while of fighting, it was down, but that wasn't the end of my worries. What the fuck? It somehow died to the wyvern despite the wyvern being dead, so I had to move on. And I did, as I summoned in and killed some more Origin creatures and tamed myself another demonic thorny dragon, because obviously the last one didn't last the longest. I killed some more demonic creatures with my griffin to get demonic souls so I could make another Spirit Orb, as there was a level 140 Spirit Rex nearby my base which I wanted to tame. I knocked it out under the water, because I'm cool like that, and tamed it. But then I went back to killing some more celestial creatures, demonic and origin, so that I could craft another Indom Rex, which I took on and defeated with my demonic monkey. I then found another celestial Indominus Rex out in the wild, so I took that on as well because, well, the more the merrier. Something I had realised now is that these bosses were getting far too easy for me. I was killing them within seconds despite them having millions of health. So with that thinking, I spawned in the easy demonic Reaper Empress, and it killed me and my demonic Thorny Dragon. I need to stop jinxing myself, man. Plus, look at these frames. I was able to finish the job on my demonic Parasaur before going out on my Spirit Rex to kill a whole lot of celestial, demonic and origin creatures. Once again. I was doing all of this so I could summon in Nova the Destroyer, but I was still 2 artifacts short. I quickly went out and got 2 artifacts, and also decided to knock out and tame one of the demonic Reaper Empresses I'd already defeated, so I was more prepared for the fight. At base I crafted Nova the Summoner, and went out to the desert to begin the boss fight. I started the fight and immediately put some health potions on and went back into attack, but I was only doing 2k damage. Things were going great though, until I died. I rushed back in on my other demonic Reaper, but I soon got killed on that as well. This time I cried my Reaper and went into the fight on my Spirit Rex. A huge mistake, as this happened. No! I went back in to try and save my other Reaper, but this almost ended my Griffin's life. I did manage to save him though and went in for round 2. It was chaos as I died again. I then got sent flying into the ocean. And then again? Swimming back to shore when your Reaper is this slow in water isn't exactly the most fun thing in the world. But after a lot of death, I finally defeated Nova the Destroyer, and got this demonic dissension item as a reward, and Nova Egg. I used a demonic dissension on my monkey, and he was now an awesome solid gold colour with burning fire around him. And I'd been able to get his stats up to 10 million health and 6,000 melee. I then hatched my Nova Destroyer and named him Nova. Gave him 100% imprint, and once he was fully grown I boosted his stats up to 5 million health and decided to try him out. I also took my new demonic monkey for a spin, and he was quite cool. But the impressive stuff came from Nova, who did so much damage. He could do his breath attack, which did over 160k damage per second. I tested him out on this demonic Empress and he destroyed it. The next boss up was Pikkon the Creator, but I was still a bit off being able to summon it. So I immediately got underway killing all the origin creatures, which was made even easier now with my new Nova. And then I was finally able to make Pikkon the Creator. So I went over to the desert to start the fight, except it just swam away from me at first. But then we actually began fighting, and it killed me. I returned to my monkey hoping to get back onto my Nova, but I died again because of myself? Bro, I just killed myself with my own monkey attack, man, what? I finally managed to get the fight started properly, and I was doing some decent damage, before I died. I teleported back to get my stuff, but immediately died again. But by luck, I was finally able to defeat Pikkon the Creator. From this fight I got an awesome tech suit which basically gave me infinite stats. I picked up Pikkon's egg and then used an ascension item I'd got on my Celestial Griffin, who looked epic. I had the best name for it, Andromeda. You know, like the galaxy? Because they have similar colours? Yeah? I'll shut up now. I hatched Pikkon the Creator and the big flying fish already had 11 million health. And after an XP potion I got up to 80 million health. And its attacks weren't too bad either. I was now ready to move on to the colossal bosses, but we need to talk first. Primal Fear is an amazing mod, don't get me wrong, but the grinding you have to do in this game, especially in the late game, is ridiculous. For each titan you need one of each orbs, one destroyer and one creator, who both need a full set of origin creatures and an emperor and empress soul each to summon. But to summon both the emperor and empress you also need another full origin set to craft them. So in total for one Colossus boss you need to craft and kill 6 sets of origin creatures. But we are not done there with the numbers just yet, because 6 full sets means I've got to kill 48 creatures, but there are 4 colossal bosses. So I've got to craft and kill a whopping 192 origin creatures. And yes, I have just put all 192 creatures on screen, and yes, it did take me a while, but you get my point. The endgame becomes just way too grindy, especially as each origin costs 20 of each tier of blood, plus an artifact. So because it's getting way too repetitive, I'll skip over all of that farming and jump straight into the bosses. Moving on from this, I knocked out the Celestial Ferry, as I needed more Celestial eggs going forward, but as I returned to base to get the kibble, it disappeared. I went back to the area where it originally was, but it had just vanished. By my base, I found a very high level Chaos Rex, so I knocked it out and fed it a Chaos Orb, and I attained my very first Chaos creature. And then I was able to summon my first Colossal Boss, the Caustic variant. So I went over to the desert and spawned in the Caustic Colossal Boss, and this thing had 2.8 billion health and was massive. But I had to make sure I got my health potions on, as I didn't want to die. But I was doing some serious damage to this guy. But unfortunately, he was doing some serious damage to my computer as it was very laggy. But for some reason, he just stopped fighting midway in the fight and it became very easy. And just like that, the Caustic Colossal Boss was defeated. And it was way too easy, I found. Next I killed a Celestial Indominus Rex, before moving on and dying to a Demonic Reaper Empress, and then dying to a second, and then dying to its minions, and then dying to it once again. I ended up killing it with my Demon Monkey, before killing a Nova Destroyer as well. I then picked up Nova's Egg, and then killed a couple more in Celestial Indominus Rexes and Reaper Empresses. I then found this Chaos Wyvern which I wanted, so I shot it with an Origin Arrow and tried to knock it out. It fell down to the ground unconscious, and then I tamed it using a Chaos Orb. I then used it to take on this Origin Argy, but I wasn't really impressed with its attack. I then summoned in Pikkon the Creator and took him on with my Nova, except he soon killed me. And then one of his minions killed me as soon as I teleported back into the arena. Pikkon then killed me once more before I was finally able to defeat it, but I still died. And for some reason when this guy died, he dropped 3 eggs, and I'm obviously not going to turn down 2 free Pikkon eggs. At base I crafted the Ice Colossal Boss and summoned him in the desert. And this boss would have 3 billion health this time. But it did turn into a bit of a slideshow as my frames dropped to an impressive 0, as I ended up dying. I then died a second time, before eventually killing it, as once again it became a bit stuck and stopped fighting. I was then out and about when my Spirit Griffin died to a Primal Kentro.
I am dead inside.
But nonetheless I found a level 135 Spirit Griffin which I then wanted, and it fell down to the ground. I fed it a Spirit Orb and it was tame. I also tried out one of my new Pikkon the Creators that I'd hatched up, and I'd pumped more stats into melee this time instead of health, and its damage was decent. I then killed a couple more Celestial Indominus Rexes with my Nova, before one of its minions then somehow attacked my base and killed and destroyed so many things. I then killed another Celestial Indominus Rex in revenge, before killing another one. However, my fabled unicorn and I somehow died to a Celestial Seeker minion who was still flying around despite me killing all the bosses. I then found another fabled unicorn, but as I went to tame it, it was killed by something on the ground. I then found a level 145 which I knocked out underwater and tamed. I really am loving an underwater tame so far. I named this guy Rainbow Road as I thought that was a really good name for it. Back in the desert I killed another Demonic Reaper Empress before killing a second one, and then a third, and then a fourth. And then I took on Pikkon the Creator once again, and it was carnage. As my Spirit Griffin, my brand new Spirit Griffin, was killed. Fortunately though, I was able to defeat Pikkon the Creator with my Nova. Right after that Pikkon fight I took on another Nova the Destroyer, and this fight went rather easily as I was able to kill it quickly. I then tamed myself a Celestial Griffin, who I ascended using one of the ascension items I'd got from Pikkon the Creator, and named him Andromeda V2. I then killed another Pikkon the Creator and collected the egg. I was collecting quite a few of these eggs as I did think I was going to use them in the final fight. I then killed another Nova Destroyer before I was able to craft the Electric Colossal Boss. I summoned him in, and this guy had even more health, but just refused to attack and just stood still the whole time, making it one of the easiest boss fights I've ever done. But with all the colossal bosses done, I still had a few more things to get before I could take on Pikkon's Revenge, the ultimate and final boss. I first started by hatching some more Novas, before I took on some more Demonic Reaper Empresses and Celestial Indominus Rexes out in the desert. I then moved on to the Nova and defeated him once more. I then killed another Pikkon the Creator. I then began hatching all the eggs I'd got, as I did want to take as many into the final fight as possible, and I was now able to craft Pikkon's Revenge, the last boss. I went over to the desert, as obviously I was going to fight him there, and began throwing out all the creatures that I wanted in this fight. And by nightfall it looked quite good, with my whole army standing there, dauntingly waiting to fight. And I had brought the ultimate dino. Pikkon's Nightmare, the ultimate, biggest and baddest dodo you'll ever see, and he was sure to kill Pikkon. I started the fight and immediately hopped on one of my Nova Destroyers before Pikkon's Nightmare was immediately killed. I put a potion onto my Nova and myself, as I didn't really fancy dying in this fight either, and let the lag. Soon later my Chaos Wyvern died, and so did my fallen Demonic Monkey, who was truly one of my favourite creatures in this challenge so far. But we were doing some good damage as we got it down to 5 billion health left before my first Pikkon the Creator was killed. One thing I did have to say about this fight is you couldn't really see much with all the fighting. Soon later, my Nova, who I was riding at the time, was killed. But somehow, despite him dying, I was able to get on to one of my other Novas. But this one wouldn't last too long either, despite putting on a health potion. And this would be a bit of an issue, as I wasn't able to get on any other creature, and I would soon die for the first time in the boss fight. As I tried to get back and get on one of my other creatures, I was killed again. I then got back a third time and I was killed by one of the minions. This time I got quite close, but was soon killed. Whilst trying to make my way back again, my Andromeda V2 was killed, and so was one of my Demonic Mesopithecus. I was actually able to get on one of my Novas somehow, and then I commenced the fight with only 1 billion health left on Pikkon's Revenge. And soon later, we had done it. We had defeated Pikkon's Revenge, the ultimate boss who had 7 billion health. But despite defeating him, he was still attacking us, and it turned out there were still a few of his minions left to defeat before we had properly finished the fight. But once everything was killed, the dust settled and it was silent once again. And somehow a lot of my creatures had actually survived. I could count 3 Nova Destroyers plus my Celestial Indominus Rex. And one thing I had gotten was this weird flaming blue club, which did 300,000 damage per hit. And it had different modes, and one was a torpor mode, which did 2.4 million plus torpor in one hit instantly. It was incredible. If you did like this video, please like and subscribe. I thoroughly enjoyed making it, and I hope you enjoyed watching it too. If you guys have any suggestions for what other mods you want to see, please let me know in the comments, or any other video ideas you'd like to see me do. Thank you for watching this video. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.